The boy was entering the city with his father for the very first time. Before he even had a chance to buy a gift for his mother, his father sold him to a drifter for 30 francs. Seeing the boy's delicate and handsome features, the drifter thought he had struck gold, so before the man could change his mind, he hurried to leave as quickly as possible. What he never expected was that on the way out they would pass right by the boy's home. By sheer coincidence, the boy's mother witnessed the scene.
Mama! Remy!
She desperately rushed forward to stop them, but her husband held her back and refused to let her go. As she watched her son slowly disappear from sight, the woman finally collapsed helplessly onto the ground. In fact, the boy was not her biological son. 10 years earlier, her husband had found him abandoned in the snow during a winter storm. However, the selfish man had not taken the child in out of kindness. From the fine clothes wrapped around the infant, he guessed the baby must belong to a noble family, so he decided to raise him temporarily. His plan was to collect a generous reward when the nobles eventually came searching for their child. Then he could live a life free from financial worries.
Non ti affezionare. Dovremo ridarlo.
But reality did not unfold as he had hoped. 1 year became 10. No noble family ever came to claim the boy. Instead, the man spent nearly everything he owned raising him. Eventually, he lost all hope. That was why he sold the boy to the drifter. By now, Remy had arrived in another city. He had no idea what kind of future awaited him, nor did he know whether the old man would mistreat him. But with nowhere else to go, he could only follow behind him and silently pray. What Remy never expected was that the old man not only treated him kindly, but also spent every last coin he had on him. Looking at the old man's warm and gentle face, he seemed completely different from what Remy had imagined. Wanting to understand his intentions, Remy finally asked the question that had been bothering him. The old man's name was Daniel. He was a traveling street performer. When he had passed by Remy's home earlier, he had accidentally overheard the boy's beautiful singing voice. At that moment, Daniel knew that with proper training, the boy could become an excellent musician. What he never expected was that the very next day, he would see Remy's father sending him away to an orphanage. So he stepped in and bought the boy himself. His plan was to let Remy sing freely during their street performances, and he had no intention of restricting the boy's freedom. Remy was deeply moved by Daniel's words, so he decided to repay him through his actions. Daniel's performances attracted huge crowds wherever they went. But when he finally handed the stage over to Remy, the boy froze. As he looked around and saw everyone staring at him, it felt as if time itself had stopped. His insecurity instantly overwhelmed him. Without thinking, he turned and ran. Remy's first performance on stage ended in complete disaster.
Beh, come debutto è stato un successo!
He found it impossible to accept. At that moment, he believed Daniel had been lying to him. He simply was not talented enough. But Daniel comforted him. He told him never to abandon his dreams because of a single failure. He trusted his own judgment. He was certain he had not mistaken the boy's talent. Yet Remy still could not overcome his lack of confidence. A distance gradually formed between them. That was until Carl the dog brought a newspaper to Remy. Only then did Remy realize that Daniel's words had not been empty praise. Looking at Daniel's picture in the newspaper, he finally discovered that the old man was a genuine musician. Daniel did not boast about his achievements. Instead, he simply told Remy to read the newspaper if he wanted to know about his past. Unfortunately, Remy had grown up in the countryside and could not read. With no other choice, Daniel introduced himself properly. Before becoming a wanderer, he had been a highly respected violinist. Vienna had once been one of the places he visited frequently. He performed music for members of high society. That was why he could recognize Remy's natural gift for singing. With proper guidance, Remy could certainly become a musician one day. Daniel then made an agreement with him. First, he would teach Remy how to read and write. That way he could write letters to his mother. He could even send her a little money from time to time. In return, Remy had to take his singing lessons seriously. And when the time came to perform again, he had to face the stage with courage. Remy thought it was an excellent idea, and so they officially became teacher and student. Over the following months, they continued traveling from city to city. Along the way, they admired breathtaking scenery. Meanwhile, Remy studied constantly. Several months later, he finally completed the first letter he had ever written to his mother. In it, he expressed how much he missed her. Even though he now knew she was not his biological mother, his love for her had never diminished. He also told her about everything that had happened to him, and reassured her not to worry, because he had found a mentor and friend he could truly trust. When his mother received the letter, she felt incredibly comforted. After 10 years together, their love for one another had become part of who they were. Meanwhile, Daniel composed a special piece of music for him. The moment he handed the sheet music to Remy, It signaled that the boy had already mastered the fundamentals of singing. Now all he needed was the courage to stand before an audience. To help him overcome his fear, Daniel blindfolded him and encouraged him to sing freely in complete darkness. His beautiful voice moved even Carl the dog to tears. Just as Remy became completely immersed in the song, Daniel removed the blindfold. Only then did Remy realize that his singing had attracted a huge crowd. At that moment, Remy finally opened his heart. For the first time, he understood how deeply he loved music. He was grateful for his own hard work, but even more grateful for the mentor who had guided him. By the time Remy looked up, they had already traveled through countless cities. His voice continued attracting larger and larger audiences. Yet the gap between social classes remained impossible to ignore. As the child of a poor family, he was not allowed to enter noble estates. Just as Remy was quietly feeling discouraged, he met the person who would change his life forever. She was a young noblewoman. Because of a disability she had suffered from birth, she had spent her life surrounded by loneliness and pain. Yet when she met Remy, a genuine smile finally returned to her face.
Dovevi vedere la tua faccia.
Non fa ridere.
Sì, un po' sì, ammettilo.
Daniel was about to step in and stop them, but the girl's mother gently held him back, because it had been so long since she had seen her daughter this happy. The moment they met, they both felt an immediate connection. What happened afterward only brought their hearts closer together. One day they were performing on the street as usual, when suddenly, 3 police officers approached them. The officers claimed Daniel's performances were nothing more than begging for money, so they deliberately made trouble for them and demanded a business license. No matter how much Daniel pleaded, the officers decided to confiscate Carl the dog and the little monkey. Just as they were about to take them away, Remy bravely stepped in front of them, only to be knocked to the ground with a slap. Enraged, Carl lunged forward and bit an officer's arm, but he was no match for the officer's fists. Unable to endure it any longer, Daniel fought back, yet one man could not defeat 4. In the end, he was arrested, but his sacrifice bought Remy enough time to escape. Although Remy was heartbroken, he knew that only by getting away could he find a way to save Daniel. Lost and unfamiliar with the city, he turned to the young noblewoman Lise for help. Soon the day of the trial arrived. The judge immediately ruled that Daniel was not guilty of the original charge. It turned out that Lise had been helping them behind the scenes. Everyone assumed Daniel would now be released. But unexpectedly, the judge discovered that Daniel's identity documents were forged. For the sake of justice, all Daniel had to do was reveal his true identity, and he would be released immediately. Yet despite how simple the solution was, Daniel chose to remain silent.